Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're diving into something really critical, the market for real-time flood monitoring and warning systems.
Very timely.
We've got our hands on the Global Real-Time Flood Monitoring and Warning System Market Report 2025. Our mission really is to unpack this for you.
Yeah, figure out the market size, where it's headed.
Exactly. What's driving the growth, and what does it all signal about how we're dealing with extreme weather globally?
Right, because this report, it's more than just numbers, isn't it? It reflects a direct response to this huge challenge we're all facing.
So the core question is kind of, how does the growth in these systems show our efforts to, well, mitigate these increasing weather risks?
Precisely. Understanding and mitigating.
Okay, let's jump in the big picture first. What are the headline numbers? How big is this market right now?
So for 2025, the projection is $205.5 million globally.
205.5 million. Okay, that's already a substantial baseline.
It is. Shows there's significant investment already happening.
And looking forward, what's the growth forecast like?
It's expected to grow quite a bit. By 2033, the forecast is $347.84 million.
Oh, okay, so a pretty steep climb.
Yeah, and that translates to a compound annual growth rate, a CAGR, of 6.80% between 2025 and 2033.
6.8% CAGR. And the report links this growth directly to?
Explicitly. To the increasing frequency of extreme weather events. It's, problem driving the solution, plain and simple.
Makes complete sense. More floods, more need for warnings. Okay, let's get granular. Regionally, where's the biggest activity happening right now?
Right now, North America takes the lead. It holds the largest share in 2025, about 37%.
37%. Okay, what does that look like in dollar terms?
That's around $76.04 million for 2025.
So the current leader. But
Yeah.
What about its growth rate? You mentioned KGRs earlier.
Yeah, its expected CAGR is 5.3% through to 2033, which is solid, but actually more moderate compared to some other regions we'll talk about.
Interesting. So leading now, but maybe others are catching up faster.
Yeah.
Let's break down North America. I assume the U.S. is the lion's share.
Oh, absolutely. The U.S. market is estimated at just under $60 million, $59.99 million in 2025.
And its growth?
A CGR of 5.1%. Driven, as you'd expect, by more extreme weather hitting different parts of the country, plus government initiatives pushing for better preparedness.
Right. And Canada and Mexico?
Canada's smaller, around 9.12 million in 2025, but its growth is actually a bit faster projected CGR of 6.1%.
Why the faster growth there?
Seems linked to their, strong environmental focus and specific vulnerabilities to climate change impacts.
Yeah.
They're investing.
Okay. And Mexico?
Mexico comes in at about 6.92 million for 2025 with a projected CGR of 5.8%. For them, it's largely about dealing with seasonal floods and the government putting more focus on disaster response.
Got it. Okay, let's hop across the pond to Europe. What's the picture there?
Europe's the second largest market, holds about 29% share in 2025.
Which translates to?
Around $59.60 million. And the overall regional CAGR is expected to be 5.9% through 2033.
So slightly faster growth overall than North America.
Yeah, just a bit. And within Europe, it's quite a mixed bag. Different countries, different drivers.
Can you give us some highlights? Who are the key players, or where's the notable growth?
Sure. The UK market is around $10 million, $10.01 million in 2025, and has a strong CGR of 6.7%. That seems driven by environmental regs and climate adaptation policies.
Okay.
Then you've got Germany, slightly larger market size at 11.80 million, with a 6.1% CAGR. They're known for proactive flood protection and integrating these systems into smart cities.
Right, that makes sense for Germany.
Yeah. Then you see countries like France, Russia, Italy, Spain. Their growth is more moderate, kind of in the 5% range.
Okay.
But interestingly, some smaller nations like Sweden and Luxembourg, they show strong CGRs to 6.0% and 6.2% respectively.
Huh. So focused investment, perhaps.
Seems like it. Suggests pretty targeted efforts in those countries. So, yeah, a mix of steady growth in the big economies and some faster pockets elsewhere.
Now let's move to the region the report flags as having the highest growth potential, Asia-Pacific, APAC. That KGR sounded quite high.
It really is. APAC's current share is around 24%, which is about $49.32 million in 2025.
Okay, so third largest right now.
Correct. But its projected CGR from 2025 to 2033 is 9.5%. That's the highest globally.
9.5%. That's significant. Which countries are powering that?
China's a big one, nationally. Market size of about 20.71 million in 2025 with a 9.0% CGR, driven by, rapid urbanization, often in flood-prone areas, plus strong government focus on disaster prep.
Mm.
But the real standout, the highest national CGR mentioned, is India.
India, what's their number?
11.4% CGR. The market size is smaller currently, about 4.93 million in 2025, but that growth rate is huge.
Well, 11.4%. Why so high?
It's not just about rainfall. It's also things like, rapid urbanization, sometimes unplanned, in vulnerable, low-lying areas. It just makes early warnings absolutely vital.
Critical for saving lives and property.
Exactly. We also see strong growth in Japan and South Korea, around 8% CAGR, and Southeast Asia as a bloc is projected at 10.3%.
That really highlights the urgency in that region. Quite a contrast to North America and Europe's growth rates.
It is, yeah.
What about the other regions briefly? South America, Middle East, Africa?
Okay, quickly. South America has about a 4% share. That's roughly $7.81 million in 2025, with a 7.5% CAGR expected. Brazil and Argentina lead there, both over 8% CAGR, driven by seasonal flood vulnerability.
Right.
The Middle East also has a 4% share, about $8.22 million, but a higher projected CGR of 8.1%. Saudi Arabia and the UAE are strong growers focusing on urban development and resilience.
Okay, 8.1%. Interesting.
And Africa. Africa is the smallest currently, 2.2% share, around $4.52 million in 2025, but still a decent projected CGR of 7.1%. South Africa is the main market there, driven by its own flood issues and improving disaster management.
So it really seems like the common thread for high growth is that combination of vulnerability, development in risky areas, and increasing weather intensity.
That's definitely the pattern emerging from the data.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. The report also segments the market components, access types, and users. What are the key takeaways there?
Right. So looking at components, hardware is currently dominant, which makes sense, right? You need the sensors, the communication gear,
Yeah.
the physical stuff.
Infrastructure.
Exactly. But interestingly, the fastest growing segment is services.
Services like what?
Things like data analysis, the actual installation, ongoing maintenance, and customizing the systems for specific needs. It shows a growing demand for the expertise to actually use all the data these systems collect.
Ah, that makes sense. The tech is one thing, using it effectively is another. What about how people access this information?
Currently, web browsers, internet access dominate, probably because it's widely available and easy to integrate.
Standard desktop access.
Yeah, but the fastest growth here is coming from mobile devices. Specifically mentions WA, which is, think of efficient mobile data access, good for sending out real-time alerts.
So getting alerts on our phones, basically.
Pretty much reflects the huge reliance we have on mobiles for immediate critical info, especially in emergencies.
Definitely. And finally, who are the main end users?
No big surprise, government holds the largest share. They're central to disaster preparedness, public safety.
Right.
But the fastest growing end user segment, that's agriculture and inland fisheries.
Really? That's interesting. Why them?
It just highlights how vulnerable farming and fishing are to floods. They increasingly need these systems to protect their livelihoods, their resources.
Makes sense. Protecting crops, livestock, fish farms.
Exactly. Other key users include media, transport and logistics, energy, construction, even tourism and outdoor recreation. It's quite broad.
It really shows how widespread the impact of flooding is. Okay,
Yeah.
so we've covered size, growth, regions, segments. What about the core market drivers and maybe some of the roadblocks or restraints?
While the primary driver, as we've sort of hammered home, is the increasing frequency and intensity of extreme weather. Can't overstate that.
Absolutely.
Then there's growing urbanization, building more stuff in flood-prone zones. That fuels demand. And crucially, government initiatives and funding for disaster preparedness. That's a big enabler.
Okay, and the challenges.
The main ones are probably the high upfront costs for these systems, plus ongoing maintenance. That's especially tough in lower income regions.
Yeah, affordability is key.
And another challenge is data integration, getting different systems to talk to each other smoothly, interoperability. That's still a work in progress sometimes.
Right, avoiding data silos.
Yeah.
What about emerging trends? What's shaping the future here?
Two big ones stand out. First, the integration of IoT, Internet of Things sensors, and AI, artificial intelligence,
How are they being used?
for much better prediction accuracy and faster real-time data processing. making the warnings smarter and quicker.
Okay.
The second big trend is the increasing use of mobile apps. Dedicated apps delivering those timely, targeted flood alerts right to people's phones.
We're seeing examples of this already, right?
Definitely. The report mentions a few recent developments, like Transcend Engineering launching their River Aware mobile app back in February 2025. It uses public USGS data for real-time river monitoring.
So leveraging existing data via an app. Smart.
Exactly. And there was the big expansion of NYU Tandon's FloodNet system across New York City, announced January 2023. That was a $72 million investment, showing the scale of commitment in some urban areas.
Wow. Localized, dense monitoring.
Yeah. And also in January 2023, the weather company and NVIDIA expanded their collaboration on AI-driven weather forecasting. That points directly to that trend of using AI for better prediction.
Those examples really bring those trends to life. Mobile access, AI, significant investment.
Precisely.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. Summarizing this deep dive, we're seeing a market for real-time flood monitoring that's, well, clearly growing strongly.
Undeniably. And it's driven fundamentally by the reality of increasing extreme weather events worldwide.
North America holds the biggest slice of the pie now, but Asia-Pacific is where the really rapid expansion is expected.
Yeah, that high CGR in APAC, especially India, is a major signal.
And we're seeing shifts within the market, too. Services becoming more crucial, mobile access booming.
Right, and adoption spreading beyond just government into sectors like agriculture, which is really telling.
Plus, technology like IoT and AI isn't just hype. It's actively being integrated to make these systems better.
Absolutely. It's a competitive space, lots of innovation, lots of partnerships happening. It's a technological response to a very real, escalating global threat.
It really gives us a lot to think about. You know, as these systems get more sophisticated, more widespread, how might that actually change our whole relationship with natural disasters? Could we genuinely move from mostly reacting after the flood hits towards being truly proactively resilient? And maybe a bit further out, what are the implications, even the ethical ones, of having such granular data and predictive power?
That's a fascinating thought. Proactive resilience versus reactive response. And the data side.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely
Well,
something to ponder.
Indeed. Well, that's certainly some food for thought for you, our listeners. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.